David Swersky and Rick Deane have volunteered for Mountain Rescue Aspen, utilizing their different skill sets in different capacities up to the present day for a combined 82 years of unparalleled service in the Roaring Fork Valley. Each of them started their careers at Mountain Rescue with quite distinct backgrounds that ultimately complemented one another in leadership positions at Mountain Rescue Aspen.
My undergraduate degree was from Lehigh University in biology, and from there I went to the University of Pennsylvania and received a degree in dental medicine. Immediately after that, I went into the Navy and served on the USS Enterprise.
Among his main jobs were providing dental care to sailors and running a battle dressing station. Unexpectedly, David received an early deferment from the Navy, giving him 7 months of time to fill.
So my thought was, I just got 7 months of my life back I didn't think I was going to have. I'm going to go to Aspen for the winter and learn how to ski. Fortunately for me, I'm still learning.
Arriving in Aspen in 1970 for what was to be one winter of skiing that subsequently turned into 3 years of ski bumming, volunteering as a science teacher at the original community school in the Physics Institute, and exploring a passion for silversmithing. In 1973, David opened his own dental practice, but he still found time to pursue his passion for the backcountry by taking classes at Colorado Mountain College.
One of the classes I took was a winter mountaineering class that was taught by Dick Arnold. The ultimate part of our trip was cross-country skiing on our wooden skis up to Thomas Lakes and climbing and skiing Sopris on our wooden cross-country skis. I had so much fun doing that the next year when Richard taught that class, I asked him if I could come up and climb with his students again. And of course he allowed me, and then he said, "I've got the perfect thing for you, Mountain Rescue Aspen." As time went on, I realized that my love of the backcountry and my emergency medical skills really made a good fit for Mountain Rescue.
David joined Mountain Rescue in 1980, launching a volunteer career that has lasted for 40 years. Rick Deane was born in Aspen, Colorado, and educated in the local school system.
I was born at the ranch, T-Lazy 7, and grew up. There weren't very many kids in high school. I think my graduating class had 12 kids in it.
Outside of the classroom and while living on T-Lazy 7 Ranch with his 2 brothers, there was always plenty to do. Rick had a passion for racing motorcycles at an early age. He raced for Triumph for 9 years.
I was always a motorhead. Out on the national championship circuit for flat track. And I'd leave on Friday night, race Saturday night, and drive back Sunday in time to go to work back on Monday.
At one point, he was 35th in the world in flat track. But when Rick was faced with the choice of living in California and continuing to race, or moving back to the mountains, he returned to Aspen.
And then basically, Triumph Motorcycles gave me an ultimatum, and so I decided I had to go back to the mountains and just couldn't deal with California and being away from Aspen.
However, that didn't stop his racing career. Deane broke the world record for racing motorcycles at the Pikes Peak Hill Climb in 1973. He did it again in 1975, and followed that up with another victory in 1976. That record stood for 13 years. Rick also played rugby for the Gentlemen of Aspen rugby team for about 10 years, during which time, in 1977, he traveled to London with the Gentlemen. Living at the ranch, Rick's career of rescuing people began early.
We were the first house that had a telephone. So people would come down from Maroon Lake, somebody had fallen on Maroon Bells or something, so we'd call different mountaineers that we knew in town, and we'd go ahead and start loading up horses and hauling horses to Maroon Bells to pack everybody in, because in those days all the rescue gear was really heavy. It's not lightweight like it is today, and we'd supply everybody the whole time of the rescues. It ended up being a 2 or 3 day, 4 day problems to deal with people. And so it just kind of naturally just kind of came to being helping and doing things and doing part of rescues.
Both David and Rick brought different skill sets by way of their respective backgrounds that became invaluable to the operations of Mountain Rescue. Under the tutelage of Greg Mace, David learned to organize and execute missions, ultimately becoming a respected team rescue leader.
He had what turned out to be an amazing vision and decided that it was no longer timely or appropriate for him to be totally in charge of MRA, which he had taken over from Fred Brown. So he trained a group of 5 or 6 of us to learn how to initiate a rescue, how to stage it, how to determine level of urgency, and see it through to the end with everybody coming back safely.
David's analytical, He's brilliant, smart guy, of course. He knows what has to be done on a rescue, not only to save that victim over there, but to make sure that the team doesn't get hurt. And when you do a rescue, you have to think of the big picture, and he does that beautifully.
There's so many aspects of mountain rescue that go unnoticed. And you know, you have your lead climbers and your pilots and people that are doing a lot of things, but there are people that are really counted on to do the planning and the logistics. And David has always excelled at that. And he cares about the people who are rescued, the family, next of kin. He really takes care of them emotionally and thoughtfully.
Among his pet projects in mountain rescue were teaching swiftwater rescue and being one of the founders and instructors of the annual Avalanche Awareness Workshop. When Greg Mace tragically passed away, David realized that a lot of people would have to step up to fill that void. He served on the board and became president in the late 1980s. He received the Greg Mace Award in 2002. Although mountain rescue was incorporated in 1965, Rick always volunteered in an informal capacity, but he formally joined mountain rescue in 1978, served as its vice president at one point, and remains its longest active member, serving the community for 42 years.
I officially joined in 1978. There was a very bad accident I was involved with on Mount Sopris in early '78, in April. So just to kind of give back more, I went ahead and joined the team in June of '78.
Rick was a jack of all trades, whose skills became indispensable in rescue operations.
Mainly my expertise was transportation. You know, I would help with between snowmobiles, motorcycles, horses, fixed wing airplane, whatever it took transportation-wise to help get the team there, get the gear there, get in, find somebody, get there quick, and then help get people out.
He's a multi-skilled fellow. If it's a snow machine, it's a motorcycle, it's an airplane, it's a horse. It doesn't matter. He can deliver, and yet being very, very quiet and self-assured, which is wonderful. There's no bravado.
I knew when I met him that he was special. Every time, he didn't talk much. He was a classic cowboy, right? But every time there was a mission, he kind of shook his head and said, I know what we need to do.
Another thing about him that's amazing is his sense of humans in the backcountry. He just would know. He would know where somebody would disappear, or he would know because he'd been by the waterfall. He just has a feel for where things might be or might take place.
He's saved people's lives. One that's the most dramatic that I can ever think of, he was called to go on a car wreck up on Independence. The car was upside down in the river, underwater almost. And they got two people out of the car, and as they were moving up, I think I'd heard the story that Rick looked back and saw some baby things in the car. I better go check, I think was his feeling. And he went back there, and there was a child underwater in a car seat. He found out it was a baby, and he got her out of there immediately. That baby's alive now because of Rick Deane.
Rick received the National Association for Search and Rescue Valor Award in 1990.
And one day Rick said, I'll be back in about 4 days. And I said, where are you going? Well, we're down to Arizona. They're going to do a little ceremony. About what? Oh, I'll tell you about it later. This is the classic Rick Deane, right? He went down and got a national award for this one rescue. Didn't tell us about it, right?
He also received the 1996 Greg Mace Award and the 2007 Aspen Elks Lodge Distinguished Citizen of the Year Award. For David and Rick, their time at Mountain Rescue became an integral part of their personal lives.
Well, people ask me why I love mountain rescue, why I've been on it so long. And the answer for me is very simple. Mountain rescue is a family. It's a second family to me. I love the camaraderie. I love the cooperation that ensues during rescues. I love the intensity. People who join mountain rescue are generally not type B personalities. So sometimes things become somewhat heated and there's differences of opinion, and just like a family. And at the end of it all, we love each other.
And obviously there are ups and downs over the years, but they all get smoothed out. And everybody works together. It all comes back to the family.
In addition to mountain rescue, David contributed his outdoor skill to the Aspen Youth Experience, eventually joining its board. As an added bonus, David met his future wife, Jeannie King, at the Aspen Youth Experience Base Camp in Marble. Shortly thereafter, they joyfully blended their families of 2 girls, Aaliyah and Tony, and 2 boys, Jonathan and Alex. To this day, David loves the ski huts around Aspen. He has been on the board of the Fred Braun Hut System for about 20 years.
I think my dad has stayed in the volunteer world for so many years because he has found great joy and pride in giving back to the community. I think a sense of responsibility as well.
I think David just has it in his heart to be a volunteer. It's just his personality, that's who he is. He's always there for any reason, no matter when, if he's needed. But he's just a very giving guy. That's just his personality in a big way.
Rick continues to own and operate the iconic T Lazy 7 Ranch to this day, with his daughter Baisha and son Jesse, following in the long tradition of the Deane family working and living in the Maroon Creek Valley. Rick has also been a member of the Elks Club for 53 years.
He's been in this valley quiet, unassuming, helpful, and anytime that he was called on, he would stop what he's doing, no matter what, and show up to help people.